Young and ambitious Laura Palmer worked in the film industry. She often had to listen to countless absurd script ideas, ranging from Earth's overpopulation to sentient plants. Yet she always made an effort to leave writers with a good impression, praising their ideas and promising to call them back. One day, her husband visited her. For months, the two had been trying to finalize their divorce amicably. Tony recounted their relationship as if it were a script, something he used to write. But for years, he had suffered from depression and had been unable to sell a single idea. Laura reminded him of his alcoholism, a subject Tony strangely refused to discuss. He, however, couldn't forget the love they once shared and expressed hope that they could repair their marriage, especially since their daughter, Anna, was suffering from their ongoing conflict. Laura, on the other hand, refused to return to that routine. She was a rising star, receiving lucrative new contracts. Before leaving, Tony reminded her that it was Anna's birthday. Laura pretended to have remembered. As soon as Tony left, she immediately asked her assistant Christian to order a cake for Anna. Just then, she was approached by a competitor who announced that billionaire Snell Sr.'s private jet had arrived. That meant he had chosen someone to become a shareholder in his new project. The competitor believed the chosen person would be her. Laura rushed to the reception and ran into Snell's son, Sebastian, who mockingly commented on her lucky watch, the one she only wore on rare, special occasions. Laura asked whom the plane had come for, mentioning that she had planned to fly to Barcelona to see her daughter. Sebastian avoided the question and instead talked about the unexpected death of one of the world's richest men. Eventually, he admitted that his father had chosen Laura's competitor. Laura was free to focus on other matters. She pretended not to be upset, congratulated her rival on the success, and briefly summarized the plot of the film she was about to present. In the end, her rival embarrassed herself in front of a swarm of journalists on live television, while Laura left the presentation satisfied with her revenge. On the way home, Tony called her, puzzled by the sudden frenzy for tickets, as if everyone urgently needed to travel. But Christian interrupted with shocking news. Following the deaths of two oligarchs, the Pope had suddenly passed away as well. At that moment, Laura received an invitation to board Snell Sr.'s jet, which was flying to Alaska. On board, she was accompanied by the wealthy man himself, who was disturbed by the unexplained deaths that in just one day had propelled him up the Forbes rankings. As they talked, Laura was struck by the unnatural shine of his teeth. Later, both of them called Anna at the same time to wish her a happy birthday, but the girl avoided the screen. Tony asked Laura to give him some time alone with their daughter, to which she responded with legal threats. Soon, the plane landed in snowy Alaska. Laura was met by Snell's assistant, who handed her fur clothing. She would have to travel the rest of the way by dog sled. During the journey, her guide explained that she would be put in charge of one of Snell's divisions, a role that would significantly increase her wealth. Laura was brought to a settlement where Snell himself greeted the new arrivals. He spoke about Alaska's first settlers, in whose honor he had built the camp, to remind people of the pioneers who built their fortunes with their own hands. He expressed disdain for laziness and weakness, disregarding slogans about equality and diversity. In his view, only the wealthy drove the world forward by building industries. That was why he had invited future shareholders, to remind them that gold belonged to those who dared to face the cold and strike their pickaxes into the frozen ground. One of the prospective shareholders, Mr. I, was skeptical. After all, the new project lacked financial backing. But Snell immediately transferred company shares to their assets. Later, Snell Sr. spoke privately with Laura. He admitted he had heard much about her but had never met her in person. They discussed children, and Laura admitted she did not understand her daughter. Snell assigned her to participate in an auction in London at the royal estate. Her task was to bid outrageously high amounts to generate excitement around the new project. The next morning, Laura returned to London. Mr. I was on the flight with her and confessed that he had been sent to Sicily to inspect refugee camps. He spoke disdainfully of those fleeing their countries. Laura attempted to contact Anna, only to be told the girl had stayed over at a friend's house. So she opened a news portal, only to discover the world was in chaos. A strange epidemic was spreading. One by one, the richest and most powerful people were dying, and no one could explain why. At the airport, Christian greeted Laura. She suddenly asked him whether she was truly rich. She convinced herself that for now, she remained only on a mid-level rung of the ladder. They arrived at the auction. At the right moment, Laura announced an outrageously high bid for one of the lots, presented by a member of the royal family. Unexpectedly, Anna called her, and Laura stepped out of the hall. Just then, she heard screams. The man who had just won a painting for $2 million collapsed and died on the spot. Chaos erupted. People were now certain that a mysterious flu was targeting only the wealthiest citizens. The economy spiraled into collapse as the elite scrambled to offload their assets. The disease, resembling a virus, seemed to infect only the upper class. Laura started to worry. Her mother called from Spain, informing her that Anna was staying with her, since neither Laura nor Tony could resolve their issues. Laura resented her mother's interference, but the woman hung up. Determined, Laura decided to fly to Barcelona. Before leaving, she met with Snail Jr., who was furious about her rapid rise. His father hadn't even asked about his own plans. Now Laura was wealthy and could buy herself new watches, while his father had poured all his fortune into charity. But Sebastian had prepared in advance. He had secured his financial independence. He sneered at his father's decisions. Laura suddenly noticed the eerie, dazzling shine of his teeth. Later, Christian informed her that a state of emergency had been declared, making it extremely difficult to leave for Spain. She ordered him to find a ticket on any available transport. The more expensive, the better. Meanwhile, she drove home through streets consumed by unrest. Along the way, she called her business partner from Snail's enterprise. He informed her that she had become significantly richer, but the only way to spend her money was by transferring assets to someone else. If she could even find someone willing to take them. At home, Laura gathered all her valuables, realizing that money no longer held value. Suddenly, soldiers arrived at her door, offering to place her under protection. She pretended to agree, but escaped down the fire escape and headed to the airport, where Christian met her with a ticket for a cargo flight. Before departure, she unexpectedly handed Christian some documents. She explained that, due to her divorce, she needed to transfer her assets to someone else and offered him the opportunity to sign. Christian understood the true implication of her gesture and walked away. The plane took off. During the flight, the anxious passengers began to argue. An elderly woman noticed the glow of another passenger's teeth and attacked him. In the struggle, they accidentally opened the aircraft door and both fell out into the sky. Finally, the plane landed in Spain, now engulfed in chaos. Tony met Laura and drove her to her mother's village. Along the way, they encountered a checkpoint where officers inspected travelers for signs of infection and any valuable possessions. Laura worried about her bag full of jewelry. But before they could be searched, a truck crashed into a police vehicle, causing a distraction. The couple escaped. Horrifying news flooded in. People were hunting down the wealthy, killing them and destroying their property. Everything was burning and exploding. Governments had collapsed. At last, Tony and Laura arrived at their destination. Marta greeted them, though Laura was visibly displeased by her meddling. Her mother was astonished at her blindness. The world was crumbling. The wealthiest associates were dying en masse, despite their belief that money would protect them. Still, Laura refused to accept that life as she knew it was over. Laura stayed, though the villagers eyed her with suspicion. One of her former friends noticed her watch and reminded her that she had bought it with her first paycheck as a waitress. Meanwhile, a neighbor suggested a theory. The virus was moving down the social hierarchy. He wondered aloud when Laura's turn would come. That night, Laura confessed to Tony just how rich she was. She admitted she had been ready to hand over all her assets to Christian. She feared that she was already infected and wanted to leave. But before she could act, a furious mob gathered outside, demanding that the filthy rich woman leave, taking her contagious family with her. Laura begged them to spare Anna and Marta, but no one listened. Then a friend of Laura's offered them his boat. The family quickly boarded and sailed into the night. Marta suggested heading to Tanzania, where she had a friend living in the mountains who might take them in. Though it would be an incredibly long journey, they had no other choice. They set course for Africa, sailing peacefully for several days. But one night, a storm broke out. Through the roaring rain, they heard cries for help and rescued a young black woman who had spent 6 days adrift at sea. The moment she regained consciousness, a blinding military searchlight flooded the boat. A patrol vessel intercepted them. The soldiers behaved aggressively, roughly inspecting everyone on board. They declared that Libya was refusing to accept refugees and ordered them to follow. In the morning, the passengers were brought to shore and ordered to jump overboard and swim. The family and the rescued girl made it to the beach, where they found a memorial dedicated to all the refugees who had lost their lives. A plaque informed them they had arrived on the island of Lampedusa. Not far away, a refugee camp had been set up, and they headed toward it. At the entrance, a checkpoint divided them into Europeans and people from the African continent. Marta tried to prove that the black girl was their friend, but she was told the girl was in a better position than the white newcomers. Later, they learned that all connections to Europe had been severed. Laura tried to remind the authorities of her many charitable donations, but it held no value. There was no food, not even basic medicine. The family entered the camp. The girl they had rescued recognized them and helped them find a little food and water among her people. Unexpectedly, Laura ran into Mr. I. He told her that while poor countries were somehow surviving, Europe was burning. He advised her to find shelter and not to step outside until dawn. He bid her farewell, and as he removed his mask, Laura saw his teeth gleaming unnaturally. The family found a remote tent and hid inside for the night. Laura apologized to Tony but noticed his silence. She asked him to open his mouth and realized he had signed her contract, transferring all her wealth to himself. They walked down to the shore. Laura berated Tony, but he insisted this was exactly why she had shown him the documents. No matter how much she argued, he remained convinced that it was always her plan. He asked her to take care of their daughter. Just then they heard Anna screaming from the tent. The couple rushed back to find two men trying to drag the girl away. A fight erupted. Tony wrestled one attacker while Laura grabbed a stone and bludgeoned the other to death. Her daughter and husband watched in horror as she finished off the second man. At dawn, the survivors escaped by boat. But as they neared the African coast at night, a patrol vessel rammed and sank them. Laura surfaced, searching desperately for Anna, but found only darkness before losing consciousness. She later washed ashore. Locals were rejecting refugees. She took shelter with an elderly woman who gave her clothes. Disguised, Laura returned to the shore and found a truck of rescued survivors, Anna among them. But Tony had drowned at sea, and Marta had died from her wounds. Taken to a refugee settlement, they were welcomed with food, water, and shelter. In the morning, newcomers offered up their belongings. Communal items were shared, personal possessions were placed in a pool, available for anyone to borrow for a day. Laura parted with her watch. Life became simple, centered on labor, farming, building, and daily redistribution of resources. One evening, Laura, now collecting and polishing seashells, approached the woman wearing her watch. She offered a trade. When the woman reached for the entire handful, Laura clenched her fist and smiled. The woman hesitated, staring at Laura's teeth, beginning to glow. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss our next movie breakdown. Want more? Check out our recap of similar movie right here. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.